Hi everyone, my name is Kate Moran. I am an occupational therapy doctoral student working in the accessibility and universal design space for individuals with both intellectual and developmental disabilities and physical disabilities for my current capstone project. So I'm here to give this lecture on universal design as an architectural framework to increase accessibility. Here's our agenda today. I'll give a quick overview of what universal design is. We'll talk about some cases and their relevance to the topic. And then we'll go through each principle of universal design briefly, and then we'll have a quick discussion. So what is occupational therapy? This is a big question for a lot of people who don't work in the world of healthcare, and even who do work in the world of healthcare. Honestly, occupational therapy can be a real confusing topic. But occupational therapists promote engagement and participation in daily activities of living for all individuals. Now, we are often seen as working with older adults, aging individuals who, have some onset of disability, whether it be dementia, cognitive needs, or, individuals who break their hip, things like that. We're also seeing a lot in the pediatric space, so working with children with intellectual and developmental disabilities, with physical disabilities, helping them achieve their occupations, participation in their occupations to the best of their ability, whether that be, school participation or even play participation, things like that. But generally, a large part of participating in our daily occupations is how we interact with the physical and social environment. This includes the built environment, which I know that's the space that they work in. So this encompasses modifying physical spaces such as homes, workplaces, public areas to ensure accessibility and usability for all individuals, regardless of their abilities or limitations. Something important is that we have valuable context about diseases and disabilities and lifespan development, so that we can inform professionals in enhancing accessibility. So that's sort of our space. And we do know that universal design is not a high priority in prevailing architecture education or the design and construction of communities at large. And so occupational therapists are increasingly feeling the need to address the limitations of the built environment by collaborating with architects and designers. So why do I care about universal design, and why should you? So 1 in 4 Americans have a disability. That's 25% of people in America that will be affected by the built environment, that are going through your buildings, that are consumers of your buildings, that will be affected by the built environment. And we know that 85% of Americans affected by mobility challenges are not satisfied with the effectiveness of the ADA. A universal design approach goes beyond the requirements of ADA, aiming to create accessible and equitable environments in all meanings of the term. It creates simplicity and flexibility in design, and I believe that it really promotes intuitive and creative design, and really gives y'all the opportunity to showcase what you have the ability to do and your creativity in designing spaces that are equitable for all people. Now let's explore some of the ADA requirements in comparison to universal design as a framework. So ADA is very specific and numerical, and it often comes down to retrofitting existing structures to meet the compliance and follow the law. So imagine you're an architect faced with the question, I designed this building, now how do I fit the ADA requirements? This is what architects are facing all over the country. They build these beautiful buildings, and then they go back, they look back, and they say, okay, how do I make sure that I'm following the law? How do I make sure that I'm following all these ADA requirements, which are constantly changing? Well, if you followed the principles of universal design along the way, you did fit those requirements, you did pass ADA. So essentially, universal design encompasses those ADA requirements, but goes beyond that and is much more of a framework for thinking and ensuring that all consumers are happy and addressed within your space. So if you designed a building with universal design principles in mind, you already met or exceed ADA requirements. Now, I want you to think back about the sustainability movement. Now, years ago, nobody cared about sustainability. Nobody cared about, climate change, especially within the world of corporate America. But as we moved forward, we started to have these conversations about climate change and sustainability, and legislation started to be passed. Businesses had to follow sustainability practices, and therefore specialties in the fields, in all types of different fields, started popping up. Sustainability engineers, sustainability architects, sustainability lawyers, and we're going to see the same thing happening with accessibility, and we already are seeing that. So much like sustainability experts are hired to promote eco-friendly practices, we're seeing a rise in professionals specializing in accessibility and universal design. So we're really driving this movement forward. And as an architect, it would really be beneficial for your career to understand these practices and be somebody who cares and specializes in these things. And ultimately, caring about accessibility goes beyond meeting these legal requirements and is about championing a more equitable and inclusive built environment for everyone. And I'm personally super excited to see where architects take this, because as an occupational therapist, I have a specialized understanding of individuals with disabilities in my own way, but I'm not an architect. I don't know how to build a building, and I don't have a creative mind when it comes to the built environment. But you all do, and you all have this amazing opportunity to create innovative and creative, equitable solutions for individuals. So what's fun about this lecture is that I'm not giving y'all answers. I'm not telling you, make this 36-inch wide pathway and make this ramp. I'm giving you the opportunity and the framework to come up with your own solutions, with this, equipped with this knowledge about your consumers, about 25% of your consumers. Now, I'm going to go through the basic principles of universal design very briefly, but before I do that, I'm giving y'all 3 cases of individuals that might walk through your building. I'm going to explain their conditions a bit, explain some of their supports and barriers to participation in occupation, and hopefully as we walk through these principles, I want you to keep them all in mind and think about ways that the environment could maybe affect their conditions or, their satisfaction with the building that you may have designed. Now, our first case is Jen. Jen has multiple sclerosis, which is a condition that primarily affects endurance and causes significant fatigue. Jen has to take frequent breaks whenever she's moving around the community. If she walks up the stairs, she'll have to probably take a break. If she works for a couple hours, she has to stop and take breaks due to the effects of her condition. Now, our next case is Michael. Michael is a teenager with autism and sensory processing disorder. Michael has a low tolerance for sensory stimuli, meaning that things like loud noises and bright, aggressive lighting can be extremely disruptive and stressful for him. Michael communicates using an iPad, which he can use to press buttons that align with his needs, and his iPad will communicate these needs for him because he does not verbally speak. Third are Carol and Harry. I did use my grandparents' names for these people. Carol has arthritis and has trouble with door handles. She has pain really with any movement that requires pinching using her thumb. Harry has macular degeneration affecting his vision. Macular degeneration does not completely create blindness, but it's very difficult for him to see things within his central vision. Now let's dive a little deeper into specific principles of universal design. I am going to keep this brief because I know that this is all new content for all of you, so I don't want to overwhelm, but we're going to get started. So the first principle is equitable use. So if you take a look at the photo, you may have seen a portion of this before, this or a portion of it, the photo of spectators at a baseball game where the short fan can't see over the fence. And usually this graphic ends with adding boxes or supports so that everyone can see from the same level. This is an example of creating equality. But here on the last picture, if you can see, we are removing the physical barrier so that no accommodations are needed. That's the difference between equity and equality. So equality, adding accommodations, adding supports for people who need it. Equity is creating an environment so that you don't need to create accommodations. That environment is built for everyone. So this principle urges us to design environments that do not segregate or stigmatize users based on their abilities, but rather fosters a sense of belonging and respect for everyone. Additionally, equitable use prompts us to create structures and spaces that appeal to a diverse range of preferences, ensuring that everyone feels welcomed and valued. By prioritizing equitable use in our designs, we can create environments that not only accommodate diverse needs, but also promote a more inclusive and accessible society for all. The second is flexibility in use. This means providing choice in methods of use, allowing individuals to engage with the environment in ways that best suit their preferences and needs. Whether it's accommodating right or left-handed access and use or providing adjustable features to facilitate accuracy and precision, the goal is to empower users to navigate the environment comfortably and confidently. Also, flexibility in use involves designing with adaptability and pace, and adaptability to pace in mind. Basically recognizing that that individuals may move at different speeds or require a varying amount of time to complete tasks. By incorporating features that allow for flexible pacing, we can create environments that support autonomy and independence. Basically, flexibility in use enhances usability and inclusivity by offering options and adaptations that cater to the diverse needs and preferences of individuals. Let's embrace this principle in our designs to create environments that truly accommodate everyone regardless of their abilities and limitations. Now, one very easy example for equitability versus equality, I think, is stairs versus ramps. Because ramps, now it's an ADA requirement for buildings. They have to have a ramp so that people with wheelchairs can get up into the building. It's very obvious why we need that. Otherwise, literally all people that cannot go up the stairs cannot interact with that building whatsoever. So it's great that we have ramps. But, often what we see is architects design these beautiful staircases that enter these big, beautiful buildings. And then individuals with wheelchairs have to go around the building and up this little rinkety ramp, when the purpose of the building you designed was to have this beautiful entrance for all of your consumers to come up the stairs and interact with the entrance. But the people using wheelchairs can't do that. So creating an environment where everyone goes up one big, beautiful entrance, one big, beautiful ramp that everybody can use is a lot more equitable and promotes inclusivity and prevents isolation of consumers. The second design principle is flexibility in use. Essentially, this means providing a choice in methods of use and allowing individuals to engage with the environment in ways that suit their needs. So whether this be, accommodating right or left-handed access or facilitating precision and accuracy, the goal is to empower users to navigate the environment comfortably and confidently. Flexibility in use involves designing with adaptability to pace in mind. Basically recognizing that individuals may move at different speeds or require varying amounts of time to complete tasks. So, for instance, if you go back to Jen, thinking about the endurance factor, thinking about how she may need extra time to complete a task, think about how certain parts of the environment may affect that. And so by incorporating features that allow for flexible pacing, we can create environments that support autonomy and independence. The third principle is simple and intuitive use. So this ensures ease of understanding for all users. If you take a look at the photo here and see the emergency pillar that we see on a lot of college campuses, the lettering and the coloring of this pillar is very bright and bold. So we're eliminating unnecessary complexity. We're being consistent with user expectations, and we're accommodating a wide range of literacy and language skills. So all of those things are going to promote easy navigation and accommodating the diverse needs and understandings of your consumers. Now, let's talk about perceptible information. Of course, when we talk about this principle, we think a lot about individuals who are blind and deaf. In the world of the Americans with Disability Act, we talk a lot about needing to use Braille for the visually impaired. But something a lot of people don't realize is that the majority of people who identify as low vision exist in a large spectrum of visual impairment. Think back to Harry, who has macular degeneration. He was not blind his whole life, and he never learned to read Braille, because who learns to read Braille unless they're blind? But now, he's having visual differences. People with macular degeneration, diabetic retinopathy, cataracts, etc., have difficulty navigating their environment but are not completely blind and do not use Braille. Other modes of ensuring people have the best chance of perceiving information is using high contrast colors and large, bold fonts. Looking at these pictures, you can see the one on the right. It's really hard to navigate. You can't tell what's talking about what. And imagine if you had, spotty, blurry vision, it would be very difficult to navigate that environment. Versus this sign, this espresso sign with very bright, bold colors, large lettering. Think about the difference between somebody who has blurry vision looking at that sign versus the one on the right. Tolerance for error involves arranging elements in the environment to minimize hazards and errors, ensuring that the most commonly used elements are the most accessible and easy to reach. Additionally, hazardous elements are either eliminated, isolated, or shielded to reduce the likelihood of accidents or unintended consequences. One strategy for implementing tolerance for error is to incorporate fail-safe features into design. These features are designed to mitigate the impact of errors or malfunctions, providing a safety net for users in case of mistakes. For example, automatic shutoff mechanisms in kitchen appliances or emergency stop buttons in machinery are examples of fail-safe features that prevent accidents and injuries. If you look at the photo, I'm not sure if anybody watched The Office. I'm sure there are people, but if you think back to the episode where Michael Scott falls into the koi pond, think about individuals who are walking through that space every day that have cognitive needs, that are low vision and can't see the ground in that same way. It's not as crazy as you would think it is to fall into the koi pond if there's no fail-safe feature. There's no sign that says you could fall into a koi pond, or there's no gate to prevent you from falling into it. Now with this principle, you really think about Jen with multiple sclerosis, who has serious fatigue issues. The principle of low physical effort seeks to minimize sustained physical effort, making sure that all users can engage with the environment without experiencing undue fatigue. This may involve incorporating automatic doors, adjustable seating, or using lightweight materials to reduce physical demands. In this scenario, I always think about airports, which require usually a significant amount of walking, and you have to walk to get to where you're going. And this led to the design of moving walkways, which decreased that physical strain on people's bodies. Obviously, if you are somebody who's fit and active, you like getting your steps in, you like walking, but really go around the environment and see how much walking is required, and then think about somebody who can't do those things without getting fatigued very fast. It really is an important part of designing an accessible space. Even not thinking about airports, which have these large spaces, but even within a smaller building, thinking about what's the closest way that I can get one person from point A to point B, and prioritizing that, because not everybody wants to walk aimlessly up and down the stairs. The principle of physical accessibility, I believe, is probably the one that you all think about most when it comes to ADA. It involves providing appropriate size and space for approach, reach, manipulation, and use, regardless of physical characteristics. So this means designing environments with clear pathways, ample space around objects to accommodate individuals with mobility aids, and those using varying ranges of motion. So thinking about somebody who can't use their right arm and has to open a door with only their left arm, or somebody who can't open a door at all, things like that. So having, grip bars, space under the sink so that wheelchairs can get through, things like that. Very basic, but still very important. Right, so we got through all of the principles of universal design. So let's think about our cases from before. Think about Jen, Michael, and Carol and Harry. Think about how Jen has low endurance and fatigues quickly and needs to take frequent breaks. Think about Michael, who might get overstimulated by the environment and might need a different way of communicating with factors within the environment. And then think about Carol, who can't open those doors without having arm pain. And think about Harry, who might not be able to see everything within the environment. So now I'm giving you a little bit of homework. Hopefully it's fun homework. But I want you to choose one of the following prompts and spend your day following it. Prompt 1, you cannot use the stairs. Prompt 2, you can only use your non-dominant arm. So if you're right-handed, you can only use your left arm to navigate the environment. And then prompt number 3, you can't hear. So you don't have to put on headphones or anything, but I want you to navigate the environment under the assumption that whatever is introduced to you in an auditory way, you can't receive. So try to navigate the environment in these ways. And then ask yourself these questions. How did the built environment support or inhibit your participation? Help you do what you needed to do, or maybe keep you from doing what you wanted to do. Did you feel segregated from others? Thinking about that equitability factor versus just equality. Did you feel isolated from other people trying to navigate the environment? And what would you change about the environment? I want you to think about these principles. Think about varying disabilities and what you as an architect, as someone who is very knowledgeable and creative in this field, would change. And I just really want to finish by saying it is all up to you. You are all the budding and green architects that are going to come into the world and make real changes. Now that you know how to incorporate universal design, you can use your skilled knowledge and creativity to go above and beyond for accessibility. Thank you all so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, you can contact me. My email is on the slide right here. And finally, on this last slide here are some references on interdisciplinary communication between architects and occupational therapists, as well as some information on universal design as a framework that informed my presentation. Thanks everyone again.